Hello dear chess fans, my name is Eugene Grinis. Welcome to my free chess school from beginners to advanced, open for everyone who want to improve own game. This video is intended for the beginners. In this video we will be again concerned with mating patterns. This has a practical justification in that mating patterns can be more easily remembered than the ways leading up to mate. For this reason, mating patterns, even though they occur only at the very end of a mating attack, are fundamental for practical purposes. There is a number of different patterns for attacking an opponent. By playing through these patterns, you will learn to recognize such possibilities in your own game. Let's take a look at the following game. This game introduces Boden's mate. In 1853, an Englishman named Samuel Boden was the first to uncork this fascinating finish. e4, e5, knight f3, d6. This is the Philidor defense. c3, f5, bishop c4, knight f6, d4, pawn takes pawn on e4, attacking the knight on f3. Pawn takes pawn on e5, attacking the knight on f6. Pawn takes knight on f3. Pawn takes knight on f6. Queen takes pawn on f6. Pawn takes pawn on f3. Knight c6, developing the knight. f4, bishop d7, developing the bishop. Bishop e3, black castles queenside. Knight d2, rook e8, pinning the bishop e3 and threatening queen takes on f4, winning a pawn. Queen f3, bishop f5, white castles queenside, a huge mistake. d5, attacking the bishop, the best move in this position. Black sacrifices the pawn in order to open the diagonal of his bishop on f8. Bishop takes pawn on d5. This position is from the game Shulder-Boden, London, 1853, in which the following mate with two bishops was recorded for the first time. It is not uncommon after castling queenside. Can you find this mate in 2? Please pause the video. The white king has castled queenside and has no moves, because the black's light squared bishop on f5 cuts through the diagonal b1, h7, all the way to b1. Black plays queen takes pawn on c3, check. A queen sacrifice. The queen has to be taken. Pawn takes queen on c3. And now follows bishop a3, checkmate. Boden's mate. Once more. Bishop takes pawn on d5. Queen takes pawn on c3, check. Pawn takes queen on c3. Bishop a3, checkmate. Boden's mate. In this position, white recognizes Boden's mate. Can you find this mate in 2? Please pause the video. White begins with queen takes pawn on c6, check. A spectacular queen sacrifice that opens the black queen side. The black king cannot move to b8 because the bishop on g3 controls the b8 h2 diagonal, and there is no way to block the check. Black therefore has no choice but to accept the sacrifice by capturing the queen. Pawn takes queen on c6. The game ends immediately with the checkmate from the light squared bishop. Bishop a6 mate. The Boden's mate. Notice how the two bishops by themselves deliver this pleasing checkmate. Once more. Queen takes pawn on c6, check. Pawn takes queen. Bishop a6 mate. The Boden's mate. The next game can be considered a characteristic in attacking the queenside castled position. e4, e5, knight f3, attacking the pawn on e5, knight f6, attacking the pawn on e4. This is Petrov's defense. Knight takes pawn on e5, d6, attacking the knight. Knight f3, knight takes pawn on e4. Queen e2, pinning the knight. Queen e7, d3, attacking the knight. Knight f6. Bishop g5, pinning the knight. Bishop e6. Knight c3. Knight b to d7. d4, d5. White castles queenside. c6. King b1. h6, attacking the bishop. Bishop f4. Black castles queenside. This is a huge mistake. Now white plays queen a6. Now if pawn takes queen, then follows bishop takes pawn on a6, checkmate, the Boden's mate. Knight h5, attacking the bishop and overlooking white's next move. The only chance was queen b4, queen takes a7, white wins a pawn, now queen takes c6 check is bad for white, since after pawn takes queen, bishop a6, it's no mate. Black has a defense with queen b7. Bishop takes queen check, king takes bishop, and black has an extra bishop. So queen b4, queen takes pawn on a7. Bishop d6. But white has an extra pawn and the better position here. On the other hand, knight b8 would lose after queen takes a7, attacking the knight with queen and bishop. Knight f to d7, knight a4, threatening mate in 2. Can you find this mate? after, say, g5, attacking the bishop. Please pause the video. White sacrifices the queen for the knight. Queen takes knight on b8, check. The queen has to be taken, and now knight b6, checkmate. A mating pattern worth remembering. So knight a4, rook e8, making room for the king. Knight b6, check. King d8. If knight takes knight on b6, then can you find mate in 2 here? Please pause the video. White plays queen takes knight on b8, check. King d7, the only move. Queen c7, mate. A mating pattern worth remembering. King d7, the only move. Sorry. After knight b6 check, king to d8. White plays queen takes pawn on b7, threatening mate in 1. Queen b4, making room for the king. Bishop c7, check. King e7. And now knight takes pawn on d5, check. The knight has to be taken. Bishop takes knight. Queen takes queen, check, winning. We are going back to the game. Queen a6, knight h5 was played. Overlooking white's next move. Can you find mate in 2 here? Please pause the video. Queen takes on c6, check. A mating pattern worth remembering. The queen has to be taken. Pawn takes queen. Bishop a6, checkmate. Boden's mate. Once more. Queen a6, knight h5, attacking the bishop, queen takes on c6 check, pawn takes queen, bishop a6, checkmate, Boden's mate. This position seems ripe for Boden's mate. Note that black has castled on the queen side and that the black king cannot move. However, the white knight on b5 is blocking the bishop's access to the a6 square. How can white deliver the mate? White begins with the knight sacrifice. Knight takes a7 check. Knight has to be taken. Bishop takes knight. Now you should start to recognize Boden's mate. Can you find mate in 2 in this position? Please pause the video. Queen takes queen on c6 check. Pawn takes queen. In this example there is no queen sacrifice, simply an exchange of queens on the c6 square, but the result is the same. White's light squared bishop now has access to the key a6 square. Bishop a6 checkmate. Boden's mate. Once more, knight takes a7 check, bishop takes knight, queen takes queen on c6 check, pawn takes queen, bishop a6 checkmate. In this position, white to move plays rook h1 check. Greco's mate is very much like the back rank mate, but on the side of the board instead. As you can see here, the white rook is attacking the king along the h file. The white bishop on b3 controls the g8 escape square, while the black pawn on g7 prevents the king from moving there. To prevent mate, black can only give up his two pieces, but it doesn't help him. Bishop h4, rook takes bishop check, queen h5, rook takes queen, checkmate. Greco's mate. Once more, rook h1 check, bishop h4, rook takes bishop check, queen h5, rook takes queen, checkmate. Greco's mate. This position is worth knowing. White plays queen h5, threatening mate on h7. Black is actually forced to play h6. If black plays, say, rook d8, making room for the king, then follows queen takes pawn on f6, check, king h8, and now can you find mate in 2 here? Please pause the video. White plays queen g8, check. Queen has to be taken. Rook takes queen, and now knight f7, checkmate. A beautiful smothered mate. Queen h5, h6. Bishop takes pawn on f7, check. Black king goes to h8. If black takes the bishop with his rook, rook takes f7. It doesn't help him. White takes rook with check. Black king must go to h8, the only move. Can you find mate in 1 here? Queen f8, checkmate, or queen e8, checkmate. Back rank mate. h6, bishop takes f7, check. King h8. Now white plays queen g6, threatening mate on h7 with queen and knight. This mating pattern is worth remembering. Black must take the knight with the pawn. Pawn takes knight on g5. If black doesn't take the knight and takes the bishop with the rook, then follows queen h7, checkmate. Mate with queen protected by the knight. Queen g6, pawn takes knight on g5, and now queen h5, checkmate. Greco's mate. Once more, queen h5, h6, bishop takes pawn on f7, check, king h8, queen g6, threatening mate, pawn takes knight, queen h5, checkmate, Greco's mate. At first glance, it might appear that white is in trouble. After all, the black knight on d2 is forking the white queen on f3 and the rook on f1. However, notice that the white bishop on b3 is cutting straight through to the g8 square, preventing the black king from moving. White begins by checking with the e5 knight to g6. This knight check would be checkmate, except that black can capture the knight with its h7 pawn. Black has no choice but to accept this knight sacrifice. Pawn takes knight. White ends the game with queen h3 checkmate, Greco's mate. And once more, knight g6 check, pawn takes knight, queen h3 checkmate. The pattern of this Morphy's mate with rook and bishop becomes clear in its final stage. White sacrifices his queen for the bishop to open the g file. Queen takes bishop on f6. The queen has to be taken. If black declines the queen sacrifice and plays, say, rook c8, he would be mated by queen takes g7 mate. So queen takes bishop on f6, pawn takes queen. Rook g1 check. Black has only response, king to h8, and now follows bishop takes pawn on f6, checkmate. Morphy's mate with rook and bishop. Once more, queen takes bishop on f6, pawn takes queen. Rook g1 check, king to h8, bishop takes pawn on f6, checkmate. Morphy's mate. A similar mating pattern occurs in this position. White takes pawn on g7 with his rook. Rook takes g7 check. King h8. The only response. Rook takes pawn on f7 check. Discovered check. King g8. Rook g7 check. Double check. King h8. Rook g1 check. Discovered check. Rook f6, the only move. Bishop takes rook on f6, checkmate. Morphy's mate. Actually, in this position, rook g8 was also made. Discovered check and double check with mate. Once more, rook g7 check, king h8, rook takes pawn on f7 check, king g8, rook g7 check, king h8, rook g1 check, rook f6, bishop takes rook on f6, checkmate. Morphy's mate. Okay, that's the lesson for today from the Eugene Grinis Chess School. I hope it was useful and you enjoyed it. If so, push likes, subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave comments. Please use the options below the video. Like, subscribe, share in your social network. Add to your playlist on your YouTube channel. Thanks for donations to my YouTube channel. You can find a corresponding link in video description. Goodbye.